Now, new CNN polling shows President Trump is losing ground with American voters. 38% say they approve of the job he's doing as president. 56% disapprove. Now, those are the worst six-month numbers for any U.S. president in the modern era.
Joining us now, CNN political commentators, Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican consultant John Thomas. Okay, 38%. That's a little better than some of the other polls out there. What, Quinnipiac had him at 32% a couple of days ago. But if you take a closer look at these numbers, there are some problems for the president among his core supporters. Republicans, strong approval is down 14% from February, now at 59%. And among white voters without a college degree, this is basically his base, it's 35%. That's down 12% as well since February. I've seen similar results from other polls as well. So, John, is this why we're seeing the White House now on this strategy trying to re-energize the base, the transgender ban, targeting affirmative action on campus, you know, hitting out at the media? And is it too early to say maybe this strategy isn't working?
I don't think that the White House is, quite frankly, that strategic at this point. I think they're just trying to start getting through their agenda once they've got past a lot of the firestorms that continue to kind of whip through the White House. But I think there's some interesting things I think we need to dig a little deeper in those numbers. First of all, they're not good for Trump. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat them. But there are things to consider. First of all, this poll doesn't use likely voters because it's too early to look at that. So undoubtedly, you know, Trump's approvals have dropped. But what about people who are going to vote in midterms is a different electorate than voted in 2016. So it's too early to really read the tea leaves definitively. The other thing is Congress's job approval has hit an all-time low, somewhere between 9 and 10%, depending upon where you look at.
Congress has always been low, though.
Yes, but they've usually been 15, 16, 17%. And the drop in those numbers have largely been from Republicans disliking Congress now. And so I think what you're seeing is a frustration with all voters, but even the Republican base, with Congress, with Trump, and not getting that agenda that they sent Trump to do. But here's a bit of optimism I would give the Trump administration, not to throw in the towel just yet, because you look at the numbers beyond polling that are encouraging. Million new jobs created, almost 1.3 million less people on food stamps than were almost a year ago. There are some hopes for optimism, but I don't think the White House, without them driving their agenda, I don't see these numbers shooting up.
You talk about agendas, so let's remind our viewers of some of the promises candidate Trump made on the campaign trail.
I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Yeah. Mark my words. Yeah. I'm lowering your taxes, big league. My contract calls for the biggest tax cut since Ronald Reagan. We will also repeal and replace the total disaster known as Obamacare. We're going to stop it day one.
So, Dave, I mean, these numbers and the fall off in the base, is it simply down to the fact that those promises remain unfulfilled?
Yeah, Donald Trump is a walking, ticking time bomb. And I think the reality is these numbers serve as fresh evidence of the fact that people are dismayed and they're frustrated. This is a president that was elected on a transformational mandate to overhaul the swamp, the rigged system in Washington. He has failed to deliver time and time again. You look at that laundry list of policies that he supposedly was going to advance as president. He's failed to deliver anything meaningful that actually resembles anything like the mandate or the platform that he campaigned on. And I think people are increasingly frustrated, and they're looking to, you know, the upcoming election, obviously, to put a message out there. And I think the reality is you've got this electorate that wants their president, at least the Republicans, right? They want a set of objectives to be achieved, and if they're not going to deliver on it, ultimately they're going to lose at the ballot box, I think. And that's what we're seeing.
Immigration is down. Granted, no wall yet, but immigration is down. Jobs are up. Veteran unemployment is an all-time low. There are things to be proud about, but you're right. He has to achieve those policy objectives because that's what voters are judging him on right now.
There's also the other big sort of number out of those polls, and this goes to all those promises which are unfulfilled and a whole bunch of other stuff. When asked, do you trust most of what you hear from the White House? Yes, 24%. No, 73%. You know, Dave, those numbers are devastating. How do you come back from that?
I don't think you can. I mean, the reality is the RNC just yesterday put out a tweet that said Donald Trump's job growth numbers, the 1 million job growth numbers, is unprecedented. That's a lie. Actually, in Barack Obama's last 6 months as president, he actually created more jobs than Donald Trump has in the first 6 months. And so I think that's emblematic of the larger trend that we've seen from this White House. It stems from his very first day in office when he talked about the crowd size being the largest ever. The fact that he was talking in West Virginia the other day saying he had the biggest landslide electoral victory ever. I mean, the reality is people don't trust the president, and that is a real danger.
They've squandered an opportunity, certainly, to the White House's credibility and messaging. But, Dave, they're not going to win the midterms via press release. They're going to win because voters are going to look at their own economic situation, decide whether they think they're better off now than they were. I mean, if you look at the right track, wrong track questions, under Barack Obama, almost 75% of Americans thought we're in the wrong track. Now it's down to 65. That's not great, but it's better in the right direction. I think people aren't going to... They might not trust the White House, but they trust whether or not they're employed.
But
So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is evidence, though, that you're seeing the splintering within the Republican Party. The fact that Donald Trump has dropped, according to the CNN poll, 13% among Republicans since February, that's meaningful. That's hard evidence that shows that he's...
You're right, but with one block of that wall, it probably shoots right back
But
up.
the president himself doesn't seem to recognize that there's an issue here. So, I mean, the fact that you have such bad poll numbers, how do you start to address them when the man in the hot seat doesn't recognize there's a problem?
I think he knows. I think he's wanting to rebuff the polls. And to his credit, although we trade in polls, and I do trust polls, especially internal ones, they were wrong. And when it
Even
came,
Kellyanne Conway said these polls aren't
right, but I'm saying that the polling that was his election were off. So you got to understand that he might mistrust those numbers
So
a bit.
clearly the president is unhappy with the news coverage he's receiving, so he decided to make his own. Have a look at this, Trump TV.
Since the president took office, President Trump has created more than 1 million jobs. The unemployment rate is at a 16-year low, and consumer confidence is at a 16-year high, all while the Dow Jones continues to break records. President Trump has clearly steered the economy back in the right direction. On Wednesday, the president introduced the RAISE Act. For decades, a steady rise
I really
in
like the trumpets.
immigration has
I think the trumpets are great.
I like the trumpets, too.
You know, Dave, if that's the kind of news coverage that the president wants, he's never going to get it. And apart from the fact that everything was wrong, you talked about Obama and the jobs. Jimmy Carter did 2 million jobs in the first 6 months. Consumer confidence is not at a 16-year high.
No, not at all. I mean, this looks like state-run propaganda. I mean, this is something that you would see if you went to North Korea and you saw, the president there talking. I mean, the reality is this is not reflective of real news. This is alternative facts.
I mean, it's campaign advertising. Everybody does it. The fact is...
this early? Do people do it this early?
Absolutely. It's called constituent communication and campaign advertising. You should be doing it. I would fault any elected official that's not utilizing Facebook Live and Twitter
But you
to
know
drive
why he's doing it. Don't be disingenuous. He's doing it because he's trying to counter the narrative of the mainstream
And I don't
media.
blame him. I mean, the mainstream media does not exactly, they're not exactly sympathetic to the Trump communications team.
It could also be that he's looking over his shoulder because his vice president potentially could be looking to 2020.
Well, speaking of that, very quickly, and we're almost out of time, the vice president's response, pretty hard pushing back at that New York Times piece. Why? That was a nervous laugh.
I mean, look, it was very clear that the vice president doesn't. I don't think he's looking at 2020, but he wants to make it crystal clear to the president that he is not looking at 2020, and that's why he was so strong in his rebuffing of that accusation.
Dave?
I think it was an overcorrection, and I think it underscores the fact that he sees the writing on the wall, and he could potentially be running in 2020.
So
as
your
the
money
incumbent
is on a
president.
Pence run?
Potentially, yeah.
Hey, remember last week?
What?
Former White House spokesman Sean Spicer.
Oh, him, yes.
Grinning from ear to ear.
Who?
Yeah, him. Let's check in with Spicy again over the weekend.
Yeah, spicy
We
cam.
got a spicy cam. Ah, there he is at the Red Sox game in Boston.
Look at that smile.
Still smiling. This is a happy man. I wonder how long that's going to last. He's not doing Dancing with the Stars, apparently.
Yeah, turn it
But
down.
seriously, this is a guy who is totally relieved to be out of the way.
Yeah, he's going to take a 6-month hiatus, and he deserves it, frankly.
Clearly,
He's going to get that aneurysm removed. He's about to explode there. David Dunn,
Cheers. Thank you. Appreciate it.